Seren Vale was supposed to be standing beneath the crimson moon, waiting for an alpha to choose her like property. Instead, she fled into the Elderwood and found a dying stranger bleeding beneath an ancient oak. His side had been torn open, and silver-black poison was already spreading toward his heart. Seren knew helping him would expose the healing power her mother had been burned alive for possessing. But when his final breath began to fail, she placed her bleeding palm over his wound and released the forbidden golden light. The stranger's body arched. Something vast and ancient awakened beneath his skin. His eyes opened, blazing molten gold, and his hand locked around Seren's wrist. One word entered her mind like thunder: mate. Then he collapsed. When Seren wiped the blood from his arm, she uncovered a wolf crowned by a crescent moon, the mark of the northern royal bloodline. The dying stranger on her cottage floor was the Alpha King. Earlier that night, the Elderwood was never silent, but on the night of the crimson moon rite, it seemed to hold its breath. 21-year-old Seren Vale pulled her worn brown cloak tighter around her shoulders and hurried beneath the ancient oaks. Behind her, drums rolled from the village square, slow and ceremonial, while torchlight stained the sky red. Every unmated woman over 18 had been ordered to attend. Alpha Varun Dorn had called it tradition. He had called it duty. That morning he had stood in the doorway of Seren's cottage and looked her over as though estimating the value of livestock. "You will stand with the others tonight," he had said. "The Northern Alpha King is attending. Perhaps, for once, you will be useful to this pack." Seren had lowered her head until he left. Then, when the village gathered and Varun's attention turned toward the arriving nobles, she had slipped into the forest. The crimson moon rite was supposed to honor the ancient bonds between wolves. In Varun's hands, it had become a market. Young women were dressed, ranked, and displayed, while powerful men judged them. Refusal brought fines, punishment, or service in the Alpha's household. Seren would accept none of it. Her 12-year-old sister, Ren, waited at their cottage near the forest's edge. Seren had promised she would return before the moon reached its highest point. A wet, broken sound stopped her. She turned slowly. It came again from beyond the ferns. A breath dragged through damaged lungs. Seren should have run. The Elderwood was dangerous on ceremony night. Rogues sometimes followed the music toward isolated villages. Varun's enforcers also patrolled the paths, searching for women who tried to escape. Then she saw the body. A man lay face down among the roots of an old oak. He was enormous, broad-shouldered even beneath a torn black coat. Dark hair hid most of his face. Blood soaked the leaves beneath him. Seren's fear gave way to instinct. She dropped beside him and pressed 2 fingers to his throat. A pulse answered, faint and uneven. "You are not dying here," she whispered. Rolling him onto his back required all her strength. His face was harshly beautiful, with a strong jaw, dark lashes, and the pale, exhausted skin of someone already close to death. Then Seren saw the wound. A blade had opened his left side from beneath the ribs toward the hip. The cut was too clean to have come from an animal. Around it, the flesh had turned silver black. Dark veins climbed toward his heart like frost spreading over glass. Poison. Not any poison Seren knew. Her mother had taught her herbs, poultices, stitches, and the hidden paths of the body. Seren had treated broken bones, infected wounds, difficult births, and winter fever. But the corruption beneath this man's skin felt alive. The drums sounded again. If Seren left immediately, she might still reach the square before Varin noticed her absence. The stranger drew another rattling breath. Seren tore strips from her underskirt and packed them against the wound. "Hold on." His blood covered her hands. When she tried to lift him, her right palm caught on a shard of metal lodged in his ruined belt. The broken edge cut her deeply. She hissed, but there was no time to bind her own wound. The cottage was less than half a mile away. Seren dragged the stranger upright and pulled one of his arms across her shoulders. He was nearly twice her weight. Every step drove pain through her back and legs. Twice they fell to their knees. Each time she forced them upright again. At last, warm candlelight appeared through the trees. "Ren!" Seren shouted. "Open the door!" The cottage door flew open. Ren stood there with her dark braid half undone and a book still clutched in one hand. Her eyes widened. "Who is that? Help me!" Together they dragged the stranger inside and lowered him beside the hearth. Ren immediately fed wood into the fire. At 12, she already knew the rhythm of Serene's work. She brought clean cloths, boiled water, and moved the herb chest within reach without being asked. Seren cut away the stranger's shirt. The silver-black veins had reached his chest. "He is dying," Ren whispered. "I know." Seren pressed yarrow and folded linen over the wound. But the bleeding did not slow enough. Worse, the poison continued to move. A familiar warmth stirred behind her breastbone. Seren froze. Her mother had called it the dawn gift. It was not ordinary healing. When Seren opened herself to it, she could feel another person's pain, draw sickness away from damaged flesh, and guide the body toward healing. Her mother had possessed the same power. Her mother had also burned for it. Someone in a neighboring village had seen golden light beneath her hands. By sunrise, the healer who had saved dozens of lives had been tied to a post and named a witch. Seren had been 12. Ren had been 3. From that day forward, Seren had used the gift only in secret. The stranger's heartbeat faltered. "Ren, go into the back room." Ren looked from the dying man to Seren's bleeding hand. "You are going to use it. Close the door. Seren, please." Ren's face tightened, but she obeyed. Seren placed both hands over the stranger's wound. Blood from her cut palm mingled with his. "Forgive me," she whispered. Then she released the light. Pain struck her like a blade. The wound opened across her own side in phantom agony. Poison burned through veins that were not hers. Seren gasped but kept her palms pressed down. Golden radiance seeped between her fingers. The stranger's body arched. A growl rose from somewhere deeper than his throat. Seren reached into the corruption and found it coiled through him like black wire. She pushed her light against it. The poison recoiled. Something else woke beneath his skin, a presence. Ancient, vast, wild. The man's eyes opened. They blazed molten gold. His hand closed around Seren's wrist with enough strength to grind bone. His gaze fixed on her face, fierce and disbelieving. A word entered her mind like thunder. "Mate." Seren tried to pull away. The stranger spoke aloud in a language she did not understand, but the meaning remained inside her: recognition, hunger, relief. Then his strength vanished, his grip loosened, and his head fell back against the floor. The golden light faded. Seren staggered away, clutching her bruised wrist. The back room door opened. "Is he alive?" Ren asked. "For now." Ren approached carefully. "Your hands were glowing. We do not speak about that." "I know." Ren knelt near the stranger's arm. "Seren, look." Dried blood had hidden a mark on his inner forearm. As Ren wiped it clean, dark lines appeared beneath the skin. A wolf crowned by a crescent moon. Seren knew the symbol. Every child in the borderlands did. It belonged to the royal bloodline of the Northern Territory. "The Alpha King," she breathed. The man who was supposed to appear at the Crimson Moon Rite lay unconscious on her cottage floor. Ren went pale. "If he dies here, Varen will blame us. He is not going to die." Seren returned to the wound. The first use of her gift had slowed the poison, but had not destroyed it. She mixed comfrey, honey, and ground moonwort, then bound the man's side. His fever continued to rise. "The herbs are not enough," Ren said. Seren knew. She also knew a second attempt might expose everything inside her. The power had reacted strangely to him. Something in his wolf had reached toward something hidden inside her. Ren took her uninjured hand. "Mama would have tried. Mama tried, and people killed her. They killed her because they were afraid, not because saving someone was wrong." Seren looked at the stranger. Powerful men had never protected women like her. Varun used law to control them. Villagers accepted healing in darkness and condemned it in daylight. Yet this man had been left to die by someone he trusted. Seren pressed her bleeding palm over his wound again. "Watch the road." Ren moved to the window. Seren closed her eyes and reached deeper. Light burst through her. This time she followed the poison toward its source. Images flashed across her mind. A mountain road. Silver-haired Lady Lysara Voss standing beside a black carriage. A cup offered in friendship. Theron refusing it. Masked attackers. A blade driven into his side. Lysara holding a small crystal vial and saying that only her family possessed the antidote. The poison had not been meant to kill immediately. It had been meant to weaken, terrify, and make the Alpha King dependent upon the woman who could save him. But Theron had escaped before Lysara's men could retrieve him. Seren's light burned through the tendrils nearest his heart, stopping the immediate spread. But she sensed traces retreating too deep into his blood for her exhausted gift to reach. His blood and hers met beneath her palms. A pulse of power passed between them. The hidden place inside Seren, silent all her life, answered. She saw a white wolf sleeping beneath a sunrise sky. Its golden eyes opened. Seren screamed. The room vanished into light. When she woke, morning had filled the cottage. She lay on her narrow bed, still dressed in blood-stained clothes. Every sound seemed impossibly sharp. Fire settling in the hearth, birds outside the roof. Ren breathing from the chair beside her. "You were unconscious for hours," Ren said. "I thought I had lost you." Seren pushed herself upright. The cottage smelled different. She could separate smoke, herbs, rain, blood, and the stranger's cedar and winter scent as clearly as colors. "What happened?" "You healed him, then you collapsed. He kept reaching for you, so I put you beside him until he stopped growling. Saren looked at her right palm. The cut had closed. Around the faint scar, golden lines formed a small sun, cradled by a crescent. It was not the royal mark on Theron's arm. It was older in design, delicate and bright. Ren stared at it. Mama had something like that on her shoulder. Before Saren could answer, the Alpha King groaned. He lay beside the hearth with color restored to his face. The terrible wound had become a pink scar. When Saren knelt to examine him, his eyes opened clear blue this time. He watched her with startling intensity. Then his hand closed gently around the marked palm. Gold entered his eyes. "Mate," he said again. A horn sounded outside. Ren ran to the window. "Riders, Varun is leading them." Saren's stomach dropped. The cottage door burst inward. Alpha Varun entered with 6 enforcers behind him. His lean face twisted when he saw Saren, then sharpened with calculation when he recognized the man beside the hearth. "You abandoned the Crimson Moonrite," he said, "and now I find you hiding a wounded stranger. The stranger is your king." Saren replied. Fear crossed Varun's face, then vanished behind a smile. "Then the Northern Territory will be grateful that I discovered him." "You discovered nothing." Varun stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Who will they believe? A disobedient healer with no rank, or an alpha who found their missing king?" His hand seized Saren's chin. Theron moved. One instant, he was barely able to sit. The next, Varun struck the wall with Theron's hand around his throat. The Alpha King spoke in the Northern language. Every wolf in the cottage dropped to one knee. Saren did not understand the words, but the meaning traveled through the strange connection between them. "Touch her again, and your bloodline ends with you." Hoofbeats thundered outside. Northern warriors entered in black and silver armor. Their leader, Captain Garrick, dropped to one knee. "My king." We searched through the night. Theron released Varun and nearly collapsed. Garrick caught him. "Lady Lysara," Theron said in broken common. "Poison. She holds antidote." Garrick's face hardened. "We will secure the court and arrest her." Theron looked at Saren. "Come." Saren's heart pulled toward him, but Ren stood behind her, pale and frightened, surrounded by armed wolves. "I will not leave my sister. Both." Saren shook her head. "I do not know you. I do not understand what happened between us, and I will not be carried into a foreign court because your wolf spoke one word." Theron's expression tightened with pain, but he did not command her. Captain Garrick spoke quietly in Northern. Theron listened, then removed a heavy silver ring from his left hand. He placed it in Saren's palm. The ring bore the crowned wolf of Valdris. "Royal protection," he said carefully. "Varun cannot touch you. No pack law can override this." His comment was rough, but his meaning was clear. He ordered 4 warriors to remain at the cottage. Garrick translated, "They answer only to the king. A carriage will return for you and Ren once Castle Valdris is secure. His Majesty cannot remain. The immediate spread has stopped, but poison still remains deep in his blood. His heart and wolf have both been damaged, and there may also be traitors waiting for him at home." Theron touched his forehead to Saren's. "I return, not a command, a promise." Saren watched the Northern warriors carry him away. Varun remained on his knees until the last royal horse disappeared. Then he rose, fury burning beneath his humiliation. "This is not over." Seren closed her fingers around the royal ring. "No," she said, "it is not." Theron did not return the next day, or the next. The 4 northern guards tried to make themselves unobtrusive, but nothing about royal wolves in black armor could disappear inside a village as small as Elderwood. Their captain, Orin, slept in a chair beside the cottage door. The other 3 rotated between the forest path, the well, and the narrow road leading to Varun's hall. They refused food from anyone except Seren, and tested every cup of water before Ren drank it. For the first time in years, Varun did not enter the cottage without permission. He came on the second afternoon and stopped beyond the boundary stone where Orin waited. "You shame this pack by treating me like an enemy," Varun said. "You threatened a woman under the king's protection," Orin replied. "The distance between you and her is mercy." Varun's gaze found Seren through the open window. "The king will remember what she is when his fever passes. A healer with no wolf, no rank, no training. Men like him do not choose women like her." Seren stepped onto the porch before Orin could stop her. "Then you have nothing to fear." Varun's smile thinned. "I fear nothing about you." It was the kind of lie that carried its own confession. That evening, Seren asked Orin about mate bonds. The guard shifted uncomfortably. "A true recognition is rare." "That does not answer my question." "No." Orin looked toward the forest. "Recognition means 2 wolves sense the possibility of a bond. It is not marriage. It is not ownership. Some pairs never complete it. I do not have a wolf." Orin's eyes dropped to the golden mark on her palm. "Perhaps no one told your wolf." The answer disturbed Seren more than it comforted her. On the 3rd morning, the forged order arrived. A young rider wearing northern colors brought a sealed message. Orin broke it open and read it twice. "What is it?" Seren asked. "A prisoner connected to the king's attack has been captured near the eastern road. Captain Garrick orders all 4 of us to identify him before he is moved. You were ordered to remain here. The message says the king's carriage will reach you before nightfall." Orin held the page toward the light. The seal appeared perfect. Still, Seren felt unease move through the sleeping presence inside her. "Do not all leave." Orin hesitated. Then one of the younger guards pointed toward the royal phrasing at the bottom of the message. Refusal of a direct command during an active investigation could be judged as treason. Orin left 2 men at the cottage and rode east with the others. An hour later, a second message arrived, reporting that the carriage had broken an axle near the old bridge and ordering the remaining guards to provide protection. The 2 men exchanged looks. "This feels wrong," Seren said. "So does abandoning a royal carriage. They promised to return within the hour. They never did." At sunset, Ren found a flake of wax from the second message near the hearth. "The wolf is facing the wrong direction," she said. Seren took Theron's ring from the cord around her neck and compared its crowned wolf with the impression on the broken seal. Ren was right. The forgery was almost perfect, but the animal's head turned east instead of west. Varun had handled northern trade documents for years. He would have known the seal well enough to copy it. Seren barred the door. That night, 3 wolves circled the cottage. They did not attack. They wanted her to know protection had ended. The golden mark on Seren's palm burned. Far away, Theron's presence flickered behind fever and darkness. She pressed her hand against the window glass. "Wake up," she whispered. "You promised." The following days became a quiet siege. Villagers still came for medicine, but they arrived before dawn and avoided looking toward Varun's hall. An old woman brought flour and admitted that enforcers had been questioning anyone who spoke with Seren. A farmer left a bundle of firewood without knocking. A mother whose baby Seren had once saved warned that strangers wearing House Voss colors had crossed the southern bridge. Seren prepared to flee with Ren if necessary. Yet every road out of Elderwood passed through territory Varun controlled. Her changing senses became both gift and burden. She could hear distant footsteps long before they reached the cottage. She could identify fear in a person's scent. Once, when an enforcer tried to approach through the back garden, a growl rose from Seren's own chest. The man fled. Ren stared at her. "You sounded like a wolf. I noticed. Do it again." "No." Ren grinned for the first time in days. At night, Seren dreamed of running beneath a golden dawn. The white wolf never spoke, but its emotions entered her like sunlight: patience, anger, and a fierce refusal to kneel. The dreams did not make Seren feel less human. They made her wonder how much of herself she had been forced to bury. The golden mark on her palm warmed whenever she thought of Theron. She did not feel compelled toward him. The connection was not a chain. It was a door left partly open. Through it, she sensed pain, fever, and a distant fury that did not belong to her. At Castle Valdris, Theron lay unconscious for 7 days. The poison had left his wound, but not his blood. Lysara's corrupted venom had damaged the channel between his human mind and wolf. Royal healers fought to keep his heart steady, while Lady Lysara told the council the attack had come from southern rogues. She insisted Theron had imagined her presence. She also demanded the Crimson Alliance proceed as planned. Captain Garrick refused. On the 8th day, Theron woke. His first word was Seren's name. He learned that 3 letters and 2 escorts had been sent to Elderwood. None had reached Seren. Garrick also discovered that the order removing her guards had been forged with a duplicate of his seal. The duplicate had last been registered to Varun Dorn for Northern trade documents. Theron left his bed before the healers released him. The council chamber had been designed to make even powerful wolves feel small. Stone pillars rose toward a ceiling painted with the first kings of Valdris. Beneath them, Lady Lysara sat in the place traditionally reserved for the royal consort. Theron stopped at the threshold. "You are in the wrong chair." Every conversation ended. Lysara rose gracefully. "You should be in bed. You should be in chains." Her father, Lord Cassian Voss, stepped forward. "Your Majesty suffered poison and blood loss. Until the healers confirm your judgment is restored, accusations of this magnitude should wait." Theron looked at the assembled counselors. "Did any of you ask why House Voss possesses the only known antidote to the poison found in my blood?" No one answered. Lysara folded her hands. "You were delirious when your warriors found you. The healer's magic may have created false memories." At the mention of Seren, Theron's wolf slammed against his consciousness. For 7 days, the animal had been trapped behind poison. Now it paced with one demand: return. Garrick placed the dispatch records on the council table. The first escort vanished near Varun's lands. The second never crossed the southern checkpoint. The guards left at the cottage were recalled using my seal, though I issued no recall. Lysara's eyes flickered. Theron saw it. "Close the gates," he ordered. "No member of House Voss leaves the mountain while this is investigated." Lord Cassian snarled. "You would imprison an entire bloodline over the word of a village woman?" "No," Theron said, "over an attempt on my life and the disappearance of royal soldiers." Lysara stepped closer. "Even if your healer saved you, what do you imagine happens next? You cannot place an unranked human beside the northern throne. The old houses will revolt. Then the old houses will learn whether their pride is stronger than my law. You would risk civil war for someone you met while unconscious?" Theron's gold eyes met hers. "I would risk war to prevent the person who poisoned me from deciding who is worthy of protection." For the first time, Lysara's composure cracked. She was confined to her family's wing while Garrick searched for proof that could survive a formal challenge from House Voss. By the 12th day, Garrick's scouts had found the missing royal guards in a ravine. 2 were dead. 2 survived and identified Varun's enforcers as their attackers. Their testimony also confirmed that men wearing Voss colors had supplied the forged orders. Theron sent Garrick south with 50 wolves while he remained long enough to prevent Lysara's father from seizing the council in his absence. On the 14th night, investigators found poison formulas and a second duplicate seal hidden beneath the Voss family chapel. They also discovered that Lysara had slipped out through an old passage beneath the western wall 2 nights earlier. Her attendants had concealed her absence by leaving meals home. Outside the locked chamber and answering guards through the door. Theron ordered every southern road closed, but Lysara already had nearly 2 days' lead. He left Castle Valdres before midnight with a small royal unit, while Garrick's larger force approached Elderwood from the opposite valley. At dawn on the 15th day, when Theron was already 1 valley north of Elderwood, the recognition bond erupted with Saren's pain. He fell to one knee. Garrick's answering signal came through the military link. His force was closing in from the east. Theron shifted at once and raced the final distance through the forest. On the 15th morning, Wren woke feverish, and the cottage's supply of moonwort was gone. Seren found a trail of freshly crushed leaves beginning just beyond the garden fence, and followed it only far enough to remain within sight of the cottage, not realizing someone had placed it there to draw her out. The white wolf inside her had become easier to feel. It stretched when Seren ran. It lifted its head when danger approached. That morning, it growled. A woman stepped between the trees. She was beautiful in the way a polished blade was beautiful silver hair, winter blue eyes, and black leather armor fitted perfectly to her body. "Seren Vale," she said, "the healer who ruined everything." Seren backed toward the path. "Lady Lysara," surprise flickered across the woman's face. "He showed you. Enough." Lysara circled her. Theron was supposed to accept the Voss alliance at the Crimson Moon rite. He refused before the ceremony. He said he would not choose a political mate while his wolf remained silent. "So you poisoned him." I reminded him that kings do not survive alone. Lysara smiled. The dose was controlled. My family held the antidote. I would have found him, saved him, and returned him to court with his life tied to mine. Instead, a village healer burned the poison from his blood. You nearly killed him. He was never supposed to escape the road. Lysara's gaze dropped to Saren's marked palm. And then his wolf chose you. I did not ask it to. No. That is what makes you unbearable. Lysara drew a narrow dagger. Seren heard the blade before she saw it. She moved aside, but not quickly enough. The dagger cut beneath her ribs. Fire entered her bloodstream. Lysara stepped back. This is not the poison I used on Theron. This one was made for old healer blood. It will corrupt the wolf waking inside you until your own power tears you apart. Seren fell to one knee. So you do know what I am? Dawnkin. Lysara's expression twisted. Your kind was supposed to be gone. The forest tilted. A thread of awareness stretched northward. Theron. Seren felt his sudden terror. Hold on. His voice reached her faintly, not as a command, but as a desperate plea. I am coming. Lysara disappeared among the trees. Seren collapsed. She woke in Theron's arms. He carried her through the forest while black and silver wolves ran around them. His face was drawn with exhaustion. His eyes burned gold. You came, she whispered, always. Ren rode behind Captain Garrick, clutching Seren's herb bag to her chest. Varen had attempted to prevent the northern warriors from taking them, but Garrick produced the royal ring Seren had carried, and the testimony of the surviving guards. Varun was arrested before his own pack. Theron pressed one hand over Seren's poisoned wound. Power flowed from him, not enough to change her, only enough to keep her heart beating. You are weakening yourself, she whispered. I have strength to spare. That is a lie. Yes. Despite the pain, she almost smiled. The journey north exposed how thoroughly Lysara's poison had been designed. Each time Seren's pulse slowed, Theron's wolf tried to pour more life through the recognition bond. Mavis had once warned him that sharing too much essence before a bond was completed could stop his own heart. Theron ignored the risk. Seren felt the cost anyway. Stop, she whispered during the second night. They had taken shelter in an abandoned watchtower while snow buried the road. Ren slept beneath Garrick's cloak. Theron sat with Seren against his chest, one hand over her wound. If I stop, the poison advances. If you continue, you may die. His answer came in halting common. Then we arrive together or not. That is not romantic. It is foolish. I am king. I can be both. She laughed once, Waikun. Weakly, then winced. Theron lowered his forehead to hers. Through the recognition bond, Seren sensed fragments of him. Not thoughts exactly, but memories carried by emotion. Loneliness inside crowded halls, the weight of inheriting a crown at 19, years spent hearing every counselor speak of duty while no one asked what he wanted. She understood why his wolf had remained silent through every proposed political union. It had not been waiting for a woman of the correct rank. It had been waiting for someone who chose compassion when no one was watching. At dawn, scouts returned with Lysara in chains. Garrick had sent a second unit along the western forest route. They found her horse abandoned, and captured her near a Voss hunting lodge. Lysara watched Theron carry Saren past. "You cannot save her," she called. "Dawnkin blood rejects royal wolves. She will tear herself apart." Saren lifted her head. "You seemed afraid enough to poison me." Lysara's smile disappeared. Varun traveled north in a separate prison wagon. The surviving royal guards had been recovered from the ravine, and their testimony ended his claim that he had acted under northern orders. Castle Valdris rose from the northern mountains at the end of the third day, all silver towers and dark stone. When the towers came into view, bells rang across the mountain. The people had expected their king to return with the political bride selected by the council. Instead, he entered carrying a poisoned healer, while her young sister rode beside the royal captain, and 2 accused nobles followed in chains. By sunset, every household in the capital knew Saren Vale's name. Saren remembered little of the journey. When she woke again, she lay in a warm chamber beneath heavy blankets. An elderly woman sat beside her. "I am Mavis, royal healer," she said. "The poison is gone." Saren looked toward the door. Theron, alive, angry, refusing sleep. Then why do I still feel wrong? Mavis examined the golden mark on Saren's palm. "Because Lysara did not create what is happening inside you. She corrupted it. I am becoming a wolf. You are awakening one." Mavis opened an old book. Its pages showed women surrounded by golden light, each accompanied by a pale wolf. The Dawnkin were healers before the northern crowns existed. They appeared human, but carried dormant wolf spirits. Some never awakened. Some chose to awaken through ritual. Your mother likely hid the truth because Dawnkin blood was hunted. Theron did this to me. No, his wolf recognized yours. Your blood, your healing gift, and his royal essence opened a sleeping door. But the wolf behind it has always been yours. Relief and fear moved through Saren together. "Do I have a choice?" "Yes." Mavis described 2 rites. The Stillwater rite would settle Saren's wolf back into sleep. She would remain human, keep a quieter form of her healing gift, and live without further transformation. The dawn awakening would allow the wolf to rise completely. Saren would become a shifter and retain the full strength of her healing power. Neither choice required her to mate with Theron. "The connection between you is only a recognition bond," Mavis said. "Deep but unfinished. It can remain dormant, be released, or be completed later if both of you choose." Saren closed her eyes. For the first time since the forest, her life did not narrow to obedience or death. She had options. The door opened. Theron stood there in a plain black shirt, one hand braced against the frame. He looked stronger than when she had first found him, but guilt shadowed his face. Mavis left them alone. Theron remained near the door. "You heard?" Saren asked. "Yes. What do you want me to choose?" His jaw tightened. "The path where you live as yourself. That is not an answer. It is the only answer I have the right to give." He lowered his gaze. "If Stillwater takes you away from me, I will accept it. If awakening brings you into my world, I will protect your freedom inside it. I will not choose for you." Saren studied him. "Your wolf called me mate before either of us could speak. My wolf recognizes. He does not own. The distinction mattered." Ren arrived that afternoon and climbed onto the bed beside Seren. "Are you going to become a wolf?" "I have not decided." Ren considered this. "Would you want it if there were no king?" Seren looked at her sister. That was the true question. She thought of the white wolf in her dreams. It had never dragged her toward Theron. It had waited for Seren to stop fearing it. The gift in her blood belonged to the mother she had loved, and the history their enemies had tried to erase. "Yes," Seren said slowly, "I think I would." "Then that sounds like your answer." The dawn awakening took place 3 nights later in a circular chamber open to the sky. Theron remained outside the ritual markings. Mavis stood within them, while Ren waited beyond the circle with Garrick. Seren entered wearing a simple white shift. No crown, no mate mark, no command. Mavis placed a bowl of spring water before her. "The Dawnkin wolf wakes through acceptance, not pain. Speak the names you have carried. Seren Vale, healer, sister, daughter of Ilara Vale." Golden light moved beneath her skin. "And what do you claim? My gift, my body, my choices, the wolf that was always mine." Mavis guided Seren's marked palm into the spring water. The first stage of the awakening opened the memories her family had hidden, and the ritual chamber disappeared. Seren stood inside a village she had never seen. Women in white and gold robes moved between houses, healing wolves and humans alike. Pale wolves rested beside them. Children practiced calling light into their palms, while elders watched with patient smiles. Then soldiers arrived. The scene burned. Seren saw Dawnkin healers dragged from sanctuaries, their gifts blamed for plagues they had tried to stop. She saw mothers cutting symbols from their own clothing and teaching their children to deny the wolves sleeping inside them. At last, she saw her mother. Ilara Vale knelt beside 12-year-old Seren on the night before her death. "I could teach you to wake the wolf," the memory said, "but the world would hunt you harder if I did. So I am teaching her to sleep until you are free enough to choose." Seren's grief broke open. Her mother had not hidden the truth because she was ashamed. She had hidden it as an act of protection. The white wolf approached through the flames. Seren placed one hand on its head. "I am free enough now." The memory released her. Seren returned to the circle with a gasp. Pain came. Him. But it was clean, not corrupted. Her bones changed. Her senses widened. White gold fur swept across her body. A great wolf stood beneath the stars. Ren began to cry and laugh at the same time. Theron's black wolf lowered itself outside the circle, not above her, not claiming her, greeting her. Seren stepped forward and touched her forehead to his. The recognition bond warmed but did not close. She had awakened for herself. When Seren returned to human form after her first shift, Theron offered a cloak but did not cross the ritual line until Mavis nodded. Seren wrapped herself and stepped over the boundary on her own. Only then did Theron embrace her. "You are still you," he said. "Were you expecting someone else?" "I was afraid power would feel different through the recognition bond. The bond is not completed." "I know. Then what do you feel?" Theron considered. "Pride, relief, a strong desire to bite anyone who frightened you. That last part requires supervision." "Yes, my healer." Over the following weeks, Saren discovered that becoming a wolf did not instantly make her northern. She struggled with the language, court customs, and the attention that followed her through every corridor. Nobles bowed too deeply. Servants whispered. Some wolves stared with reverence because Dawnkin had become legend. Others looked at her as if she were another dangerous change Theron intended to force upon them. Saren refused to disappear into royal chambers. She worked beside Mavis in the infirmary. Her first patient was one of the royal guards assigned to protect her cottage, still recovering from the wounds he had suffered in Varun's ravine. Ambush. The man began to kneel when she entered. "If you move with those stitches, I will tie you to the bed," Saren said. He lay down immediately. Mavis laughed until tears filled her eyes. Wren adapted more easily. Within 2 weeks, she knew every hidden staircase in the eastern wing. She persuaded kitchen servants to teach her northern swear words, and then claimed Garrick was responsible. She attended lessons with noble children, but continued sleeping in Saren's chamber whenever winter storms shook the windows. Theron never asked Saren to move into his rooms. He visited each evening, usually carrying books or badly carved wooden animals. One night, he brought a creature with one leg longer than the others. "What is it?" Saren asked. "A horse." Wren examined it. "It is a very unfortunate horse." Theron looked wounded. Saren kept it beside her bed. Their conversations grew easier as his common improved. Saren learned enough Northern to understand when Garrick insulted counselors under his breath. Theron told her about his father, who had taught him that affection created weakness. Saren told him about villagers who accepted her healing, but would have watched her burn if Varun named her a witch. "Power does not reveal character," she said. "It removes the need to hide it." Theron remembered the sentence. He repeated it later at Varun's trial. By the end of 6 weeks, Saren could shift without fear and heal without emptying herself. She and Theron had also learned enough of each other's languages to argue without a translator. During one of those arguments, Theron admitted he had once accepted the Crimson Moon rite as harmless tradition because he had never been forced to stand inside it. Saren told him that ignorance did not make the harm smaller. He agreed. Meanwhile, the trials began. Varun's trial drew witnesses from every village under his former authority. At first, few dared speak. Then a seamstress named Mara described being fined when she refused the Crimson Moon rite after her mother died. A farmer's daughter testified that Varun had threatened to take her family's land unless she entered his household. 2 former enforcers admitted they had been ordered to follow women who left the ceremony early. Wren sat beside Saren through every word. When Varun was allowed to speak, he pointed at Saren. She defied pack law. Everything that followed began with her disobedience. Saren rose. "No, everything began because you believed law existed to make weaker people available to you." Varun looked toward Theron. "You would allow a healer to judge an alpha?" Theron answered calmly. "I allow the harmed to describe the harm. The judgment belongs to the court." The court stripped Varun of title, property obtained through coercion, and the right to command another wolf. He was sentenced to life imprisonment under independent oversight. His seized wealth funded restitution for the families he had exploited, and the rebuilding of roads and homes his taxes had neglected. Lysara's hearing was colder. She admitted little, but the evidence spoke for her. Poison formulas in her hand, payments to Varun, forged seals, and correspondence describing Theron as a crown that must be guided by the correct bloodline. Her father attempted to argue that political stability justified desperate measures. Saren asked him one question. If Theron had accepted your daughter after she poisoned him, would you have called that consent? Lord Cassian had no answer. House Voss lost its hereditary council privilege. Its innocent workers and tenants kept their homes, but the fortune used in the conspiracy funded healer sanctuaries and compensation for the dead guards' families. Lysara was sentenced to life in the mountain fortress. She looked at Seren as the sentence was read. You think he will remain fascinated when you become ordinary to him? Seren glanced at Theron. I hope I become ordinary to him. Ordinary mornings, ordinary disagreements, ordinary years. That is what you never understood. Love is not a throne someone wins. After the trials, Seren returned to Elderwood. The village square looked smaller than she remembered. Women gathered beneath the same platform where Varun had once inspected them. This time they spoke about what should replace him. Some wanted a strong alpha appointed by Theron. Others feared another ruler would eventually become the same. Saren proposed a council elected by the village, with an alpha responsible for defense but removable by public vote. An elderly wolf stared at her. That is not tradition. Neither was Varun's grandfather until someone gave him power. The proposal passed. Mara, the seamstress who had testified first, became Elderwood's elected representative to the Northern Council. A respected hunter named Tomas was chosen as alpha for a 3-year term. When Saren unlocked her old cottage, the smell of smoke and dried herbs brought tears to her eyes. Theron stood outside rather than following. This was your home, he said. I will enter when invited. Saren opened the door wider. Come in. Together they chose which walls could be saved and where the new healing room would stand. The first Dawn House began there. When Saren returned to Castle Valdris, she still did not immediately accept a crown or a mate bond. The Northern Council was not pleased. One winter morning, a counselor asked why the Alpha King continued waiting when the wolves had already recognized her. Seren answered before Theron could, because recognition is not consent. The chamber fell silent. Theron smiled. 2 months after the Dawn Awakening, Seren asked him to meet her in the Moon Garden. Ren and Mavis remained nearby, not as witnesses demanded by law, but as family Saren wanted present. Theron stood beneath the silver trees without his crown. Saren touched the golden mark on her palm. I chose my wolf before I chose you. I know. I needed to know that what I felt was not survival, poison, or fate speaking over my own voice. And now I know I love the man who came back for me, learned my language, and allowed me to tell him when he was wrong. That final quality has required considerable endurance. Seren laughed. Then she became serious. I choose you, Theron Valdris, not because your wolf named me, because I know you, and I want the life we might build. Theron's eyes turned gold. He knelt. An Alpha King kneeling before a border healer sent a wave of shock through the attendants beyond the trees. I choose you, Saren Vale, he said in clear common. healer, wolf, sister, and the fiercest lawmaker my council has ever feared. I will never use fate to silence your choice." He offered his hand. Saren took it. They completed the bond through shared vows and a ritual exchange of blood from their palms. No bite was given until both explicitly asked for it. Golden and silver light joined around them. The connection opened. Saren felt Theron's love, but it did not swallow her identity. A door existed between their minds, and both could close it when they wished. Ren wiped her eyes. "I am not crying," she announced. "The moon garden is very dusty." Theron looked toward her. "Would you come here?" Ren approached cautiously. Theron knelt again. "You are Saren's family. If you choose, you are mine as well. Not as a subject, as my sister by bond and daughter of this house." Ren threw her arms around his neck. "I choose." Saren did not become queen because Theron claimed her. The debate over the Crimson Moon Law became the greatest test of Saren's place in the North. Several alphas argued that compulsory attendance helped isolated wolves discover compatible partners. Others claimed pack leaders needed authority to arrange unions during wartime. Saren listened until they finished. Then she asked every counselor who supported the law to stand in the center of the chamber while strangers examined their bodies, discussed their bloodlines, and decided whether they were worthy of selection. No one moved. "That silence is my argument," she said. A younger alpha protested that tradition could be reformed without being abolished. "Voluntary gathering is tradition," Saren replied. "Compulsion is ownership." Theron allowed the debate to continue even when it turned against him. Some accused him of surrendering Northern law to please his mate. "She is my mate by her own choice," he said, "but the law was wrong before that choice, and it would remain wrong even if she had never chosen me." That answer changed the room. Mara spoke for Elderwood. Mavis spoke for healers who had spent generations hiding. Orin, still walking with a cane after the ravine attack, spoke for guards ordered to enforce laws they knew were cruel. The final measure abolished mandatory attendance, prohibited punishment for refusing a match, and required explicit consent before any mate claim received legal recognition. The vote passed by a narrow margin. Saren did not celebrate until the ink dried. With the Crimson Moon Law abolished, Saren stood before the Northern Council and presented further reforms. Forced mate claims would be treated as assault. Every pack would establish an independent refuge for women, children, and low-ranked wolves threatened by their leaders. Healers could register for protection without surrendering their freedom or becoming property of the crown. The council resisted. Saren argued for 3 days. Theron never spoke over her. When the vote came, the reforms passed. Representatives from the northern villages, the royal wolves, the healer houses, and Elderwood were then asked whether Saren had earned the right to govern beside Theron. The answer rose in human cheers and wolf howls. At her coronation, Saren wore no jeweled gown chosen by the court. She wore white and gold, the colors of the Dawnkin, with her mother's small silver pendant at her throat. Ren placed the circlet on her head. "Does this mean I have to call you Your Majesty?" "Only when you are trying to annoy me. Your Majesty, may I have 2 desserts?" "No, then Queen Saren is not very powerful." Theron laughed openly before the entire court. The following autumn, Seren returned to Elderwood for the first voluntary moon gathering. Music filled the village square, but no woman stood in a line. People danced, ate, spoke with strangers, and left whenever they pleased. Seren paused beneath the trees where she had once fled in fear. Theron joined her. "This is where I found you," he said. "This is where I found you bleeding. I prefer my version. Your version is less accurate." Ren ran past them with a group of village children, shouting that she had discovered the best honey cakes. Seren watched her sister disappear into the crowd. A year earlier, she had believed survival meant hiding every extraordinary part of herself. Now dawn houses were opening across the north, the Crimson Law was gone, and no woman in Varen's former territory could be claimed through coercion, rank, punishment, or ceremony. Theron took her hand. "What happens now?" Seren looked toward the lights, the healers wearing their golden symbols openly, and the women choosing their own dances. "Now we make sure this freedom lasts." His thumb brushed the mark on her palm. The bond warmed between them, chosen, equal, and alive. The Elderwood was no longer holding its breath. For the first time in generations, it sounded like people learning how to live without fear.